if that was a panel or a word book, I would have known that that's Anne's favorite.
Yeah.
The comic doesn't work until you read it. Like that's how a comic works. That should be what we need to do next. We have the quiz for which VeeFriends are you. We need to have the quiz for which VeeFriends comic should you read first.
She gets very angry about the reading of it.
Talk to me about the page after he get bitten by a snake, because it goes downhill fast. Manuel said, we often hear about DJ's and Gary's vision for the comics, but what is yours?
Don't wait too long, Print runs are going up, back issues are disappearing. Now is your chance. I love the collector part, and I think collectors are really important, but I want readers too. I want people to fall in love with these stories and these characters.
Let's get into the comic, Confident Cobra. First of all, the cover. I mean, I think you guys are using a new printer because it's way more glossy and shiny than any other comic was before. I know in a recent, on the last live, I think, where you guys sold these, you talked about that you are getting away from potentially the bookmarks, and I think it has to do with you choosing a different printer.
Yeah, that could be. It's funny because, like I have my stock of comics that I've worked on, and I feel like those covers were very, glossy, but I don't know, something about that one, it feels a little bit different or something.
It feels different. Like it's so much, you have to be, if you want to grade it, don't touch it because there's going to be so many fingerprints on it. But I like it. First of all, I also feel like this cover is so great when it comes to foils.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys really look into that now too, of what do you put on top? Because the people are into the chase and stuff like that. What is going to look great on a foil?
I'll be honest, I'm becoming more aware of that. That's not something I've had a lot of experience with. And literally, I had a meeting today. DJ's on vacation. So I've been sitting in on these meetings that he would normally have. So I had, I think, 5 hours of meetings today.
Oh, wow.
I need to respect DJ more that he's still able to produce comic books while doing all of this stuff. But one of the meetings was specifically on the foils and, how we produce files for that. And it's not something I thought about too much, really. That's something that Aaron, our designer, handles, at least setting up sort of the files and how those foils are going to actually print. But it is something that is a topic. It's on my mind now. It's really hard to make a good composition for a cover. So, it's hard for me to think about when the idea of foils comes into that process, because in some ways it's well, the base cover is the one that everybody's going to see more or less.
Right.
So get that right. And then I think it's a matter of actually thinking what the foils will look like, because we can set up those files to sort of print. We have a lot of control over that. So it's just a matter of, we have to spend some time with that, maybe working with Aaron, if we have a specific idea in mind. Once we have the design that we like. So that's pretty new to me. So whenever it works, and I love the Cobra foils that I've seen, I will be honest, it's very lucky that those look, good, because it wasn't something I put too much thought into.
Got it. I heard you say that this was one of the hardest to draw just because of lack of limbs. I think you said.
That's it. And also the face, the face of a cobra is not like a human. So having any kind of expression was really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you, I when I got this in, it came late, which was frustrating, but I got it and I read it at home, which I'm in my office now, and which is not in my house anymore. And since we've had it, I've been reading here. I read this one at home because it got delivered to my house. And it's the first time ever that I read through it and then by myself, and I literally finished it. And then my kids came in and they were like, whoa, because they saw the cover and they were like, can you read that to me? And I'm like, sure. And I read it right back through. So it's the first time ever I read it and then instantly reread it, which was actually a very, very great experience. Not just VeeFriends. I've never done that in any comic. And it was actually really enjoyable because I still picked up different things. And there were some things where I was like, that's an interesting thing. And then the next time I'm like, oh, that's so good. You know what I mean? And that's why we encourage everyone to reread the comics, but doing it right after was super cool. And then just a sidebar, because I think it's fun. My kids were here at the office and we were talking comics and VeeFriends Comics. I had a bunch out, and I gave my daughter The Driven Dragon because both lead characters are girls, are female, and she loved that about it. And so we got to read that, and I let my son pick whatever he wanted, and he picked Farm Fights. And I'm like, you are a Jim Rugg fan, is what it is. You know what I mean? And
That's
so
really cool.
we read that. He's 8, and we read that at night, and I told him it was about wrestling, and he was like, oh yeah, but it was even before that he chose that. So anyway,
that's great.
Yeah, so he like that. The cover to me, when I saw it, I was like, that's going to look so good in foiling, all of them. But I think especially like the gold. I don't think I've seen a gold get pulled or yet, but
yeah, I don't think I've seen one yet either. I think I've
had
seen
a preview of it. I think, and just like the gold on gold, it just looks so good. And I was glad, because sometimes we say like, oh, specifically, actually, while that you're here, I'm like, I would have loved to see foiling on your Astro cover.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, how good would that look in like silver? Because anytime cover Bs come up, what's your favorite? We get asked a lot. I can't not include the Astro with the alien face on the helmet. I can't not include it. It always comes top of mind every time the cover B question comes up. But I'm like, oh, I would love to see a foiling of that. So I was wondering if you took that into consideration with this cover, because there's no background. So
yeah, I did not. I wish I could say I did. Cobra was hard for me visually, and that included the cover. Like I probably did 50 drawings of basically a coiled up Cobra, trying to like figure out something that looked cool. And even whenever I did that one, that red background was the last thing I added. Like I had completely colored Cobra. I had it on a black background. It didn't look right. It was too dark. And when I tried red, it was like, oh, wow. But it was kind of an unusual process for me. And definitely some luck and chance went into that one. Like Bob Ross, there was some happy accidents to make that cover.
It really pops. I think it was like, I'm so happy that happened.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool too. Like you said, like this is the cover that most people are going to pull. And if it's just such a cool cover where it's like, man, that looks cool. Like you are not upset if you are just pulling a base. You want to pull a base.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to get the base cover because it looks so good. But I feel like the things too, we have seen, so recently we have opened more comics. So we see a little bit more of like the foiling and stuff. And we've seen a difference in them too. That was, I want to say, Kind Warrior, when it comes to, for example, like the shimmer. His body doesn't have the shimmer, but the background does. And I'm like, do you guys change that over time? Like, do you pay like attention to like where the foiling goes on and where it doesn't go on?
Yes. And it's really a cover by cover, we don't have like a catch-all system for it. So, if there's maybe a figure in the middle, maybe doesn't get the foil, but it depends on each cover. And part of what we were meeting about today is even more nuance, where we can do gradations of the foil that is visible. Cool. So, we might do, like in Kind Warrior, for example, we could do something where like the figure gets half foil, so it's not as shiny as like the rest of the foil part would be. So yeah, like we're learning that process too. And there's a lot of, as you can imagine, there's a lot of options there. So it's, we're still very new at this. We've only been making comics at VeeFriends for about a year. So we are hopefully continuing to get better. A year from now, again, I think in the future, and a year from now, hopefully we'll continue to do interesting stuff with the foils and with the covers and those rarities as we continue to learn. And, like our meeting was with the printers. So like, we're literally sort of talking about different ideas we have, and is that possible? And, continuing to kind of like push what we can do to make these comics as good as we can make them.
I think one thing we have seen that a lot of people have talked about, it's a couple of, not all the covers, just a couple of them, like Gary B. Silver. It's all silver, but the B still has color. Gosh, that just pops. Or like on the gold, like sometimes there's color. Like I haven't seen the silver or gold of this one, but like if I imagine like a silver, but there's still the purple. Yeah, that all looks so good. But like you're like your mind start like playing like, gosh, like this character would really look good on this, and it's like that. Like you said, there's so many options on that, which is really really cool. Which I feel like is we are always in between of like we want people to first of all read them, but we also see the collectability, and we get why people want to open them and like have good hits, and like we're collectors too. Like we want both. Like we're trying to get the in between of like, yes, open them. Yes, we want you to get a foil, but if you get a base, open it. Yeah. Comic.
Sometimes I'll get they'll send me a bunch of comics, like with Adaptable Alien, or I mean Adventurous Astronaut, I guess Adaptable Alien too. They sent me a batch to rip and sign, and like my fanboy hat goes on, and I get pretty into the ripping and seeing like what covers are coming out, and yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah,
I feel like it just adds another layer to it. Like you have the stories, you have the ripping of it, you have the collectible part. I feel like there's so many things that it's just different about comics that VeeFriends does versus maybe a different company, But it's a cool part of like you get the collectors in through the ripping, but then hopefully also push them towards like, okay, you got like 5 base in that break. Why don't you open one? Just see what it's about. That's what we are trying to like kind of a little bit push for is like, just give it a try. Just like,
yeah, I hope so. And I wonder, if it's a matter of at some point we're going to nail this perfect story, something that goes viral essentially, that will drive people to read them. And it'll be interesting, when that happens, because then hopefully people will go back into the issues that they haven't read yet. Once they realize, like, I always say, like, the comic doesn't work until you read it, like that's how a comic works. So hopefully, more and more people will discover that part. That's certainly as a comics creator, like I want people to read what I do. So I love the collector part, and I think collectors are really important, but I want readers too. I want people to fall in love with these stories and these characters.
It's like Gary said, it's and not or. I talked with somebody today, like if you're just collecting, why are we putting something in the middle of them? We're just collecting the covers. Like, why are we writing and drawing in the middle of the comic? Like just do both, people.
Yeah, if you love this thing, open it up, see what it's really about.
Yeah, I'd say buy 2, right? If you're into collecting, cool. Keep one pristine and then open the other. Like you got to know
a lot of good solutions to this.
If you're a collector and it's all about, not all about, but like even if it's the money, the value, and all that, going inside the issue, if it's a great issue and great story and it's going to hit on a good character, like all of that will come into the collectability of it as well. You know what I mean? Like it's not just because it has this pretty foiling, people are going to give you a ton of money for it. It's got to be a good story for a key issue or a key character, and all of those things matter, I think, to the collectability. The reason that there are certain stories or comics that are worth thousands, if not tens of thousands, outside of VeeFriends is because of the significance of it, which means that something happened in the comic that made it valuable, not just the rarity or scarcity of it. So, and when you can get that combo of like character, the issue is really resonating and hitting with everyone, and awesome cover art, and you can get a high grade and there's a foil, there will be a perfect storm where, that's where it hits. But if you don't read it and know, and if that didn't exist, none of this would be collectible, and you wouldn't get to collect it. So to me, it's more important than the foiling or scarcity.
And I feel like Tom and I almost collect different because we also read it. Like you said, Tom, like we know what the story is about, and we can kind of see, talking to a lot of people, what really was interesting for people, what are the stories people talk most about and why. And I feel like that helps you as a collector. This is going to take off. this is going to be a story that we know is going to be at some point spun out because we have seen so many people talk about. We know how important this story was, and then new people coming in at some point, they're going to see how important this was for the VeeFriends universe. So you collect different too, because you not just see the foiling on it, but you understand how important this was for the VeeFriends universe, setting up the whole story and even stories for other characters. And I feel like some people are missing that part.
Yeah, you know what you guys are doing is fantastic for those reasons. You know, there are a lot of people that are collectors, and you'll see them maybe on Whatnot streams and places like this. I think it's equally important for the people who are reading the books and enjoying the stories to also be putting that out there. You know, like that's what I tell everybody is like, whenever you encounter anything that you enjoy, share that, because like there's so much content in the world. Like most of my life is comics, and I still constantly miss comics that when I do find them, I'm like, this is great. It's been out for 3 years and this is the first I'm hearing about it. Like my whole life is comics. How can this be? So, you know, I think that what you guys are doing and other people in the community, that's how it works. You know, you find the stories or the characters that resonate and you're sharing them. And, you know, people are watching and also finding them because of that. And it just kind of, you know, these things grow. So.
Like we talked earlier, when Tom and I talk and like kind of give each other ideas, like why we like this comic or this character and kind of learn about it. And like, now it grows on us too, because of hearing a different perspective. The same, like you said, when I read somebody talking about like, I really love this comic because of this and this, or I connected because I had a similar story, or it was a story like I really connected with my kid with, and now we had a great conversation. Like those are the things that kind of sit with you, and you just think like, man, it really had an impact. And like that gets other people to read it again. So if you're listening, go put it out. A picture, a tweet, a video, whatever you feel comfortable with, just talk about them. It's important. Like, yes, put your big hits on socials, go for it. But also, if there was a panel you really liked, if there was a story that is connected with you, put that on there too. It's just as important, so we get more people to actually read the stories. Because the covers mean nothing if we don't also read the story.
And, you know, there's much less content about that than there is about, you know, I pulled a gold or a silver or something. So, you know, there's almost incentive to like read these stories and share the parts you like, because there aren't that many people doing that. You know, you can stand out if you're not just looking at the covers.
Yep. There's more to it. Let's get into it.
I feel like we said that 15
I know.
minutes.
Like Tom said earlier, I feel like we all had expectations of like how this comic goes, of like seeing the cover and like seeing cover B and how what it's going to be about. I also didn't know Mentor Mongoose.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of, like, I know now that it was a character that was existent already in VeeFriends. I didn't know about him, her, him. In this story, it's him. But I know like sometimes they can change. So it was cool for me to like dive also into a different character that is part of VeeFriends that I hadn't really heard about. Like those access characters and stuff that are all series 1 that new collectors who come in, or like new VeeFriends who come in, have never heard about. I feel like it dives them into like, who is this? What do you mean it's part of VeeFriends? I've never heard of it. It's not a series 2 card. It's not like, you know, like it gets you into all the, I think VeeFriends is really good about connecting all the different worlds and parts of VeeFriends. If it's the NFTs, if it's the comics, if it's the cards, to kind of combine it. So if you get into one thing, you're also exposed to all the other avenues. And I feel like that's really cool. And I feel like this one did that for me.
That's great to hear. Yeah. I didn't know that about Mentor Mongoose whenever I first started this story. And in the process of making it, I learned more about that character and how it was not, you know, sort of, I don't even know how to describe it, but it wasn't sort of the VeeFriends that everybody knew.
Right. It's like not in the mainline series that everyone knows. It's like this little offset that hasn't been seen in 5 years.
Yeah, it's almost an Easter egg. And we definitely do that in some of the comics. You know, sometimes you'll see background things, reference to a character that maybe we haven't actually seen yet, you know, in the stories or whatever. We have some fun stuff like that coming up. So, you know, for you want to appeal to everybody, right? Like if it's their first comic, you want it to work for them. But if it's somebody who's been a VeeFriends fan from the beginning, it's also fun when you can kind of surprise them or give them that little Easter egg that, it means something else to them than it does to the person who is encountering, their first VeeFriends comic book. It's very fun on our end for that kind of stuff.
And I think that it works too. Like somebody can read this who doesn't know anything about VeeFriends and understand the story. You don't have to know what Mentor Mongoose is or like how involved it is within VeeFriends to understand the story. But like you said, like somebody who was in it for a long time is like, oh, I remember that. It was an Access character. Like it hasn't really been around, but like it gets you back into like the old school times. So I feel like it kind of feeds into those worlds, which I feel like it's really cool about VeeFriends that you guys kind of put those Easter eggs in there that's like, oh, I remember that,
Yeah, I hope it gives the feeling too for longtime fans of anything can happen.
Yeah.
You never know who or what is going to show up in what way.
I love the family dynamic of the Cobras in this, and I like that you gave real names. I was curious. I'm like, where did these names come from? Are these people that that you're named after, or But I just love that it was this big family. They're playing checkers. They're watching TV, and like it makes no sense, but yet it's so great.
It's definitely a cartoon logic in this one, and I was talking about Looney Tunes, and that was something I grew up with. Like that was a cartoon that was on a lot, and the stories made sense, but like things that would happen in the story were just what I call cartoon logic.
Right.
And I mentioned that, and somebody was like, "Oh, Gary's talked about Looney Tunes." So, like we're similar age. So that used to be a big thing. I think like your age would be like what you would have in common with other people because of the way shows were syndicated and things like that. And so I thought it was funny that, I'm not the only one who Looney Tunes was a thing. And when I get to play with like the cartoonish stuff, I enjoy that a lot. I think comics can be very good at cartooning, the kind of the funny, playful, colorful part of cartoonish. And not all comics are like that, nor should they all be one way, but it's fun as an artist because it allows you to sort of do visual gags and maybe make them a little more colorful and more animated. And with the snakes, that's one of the things that I found in this book is the more cartoonish I kind of leaned, the more expressive those snakes that I was having trouble making expressive became.
But I love the little jokes in between of like when the delivery guy brings the piano, like you can keep the pen, it's like a typical thing. You just like kind of know, like you've seen, like you said, like in cartoons and stuff, like it's good, I'm good, we are, just like little moments like that everybody like our age group has seen so many times in like cartoons and stuff, and just like instantly get it.
Right, like the human is acting like a human, where the Cobras are also acting kind of like human that we know, but they're just like, imagine a human walking up on 20 Cobras, they would freak out. And it's just like, they know they're in a weird situation, yet the Cobras are like, what's that guy's deal? You know what I mean? I love that. And it also, you're establishing that this is a close family. They're talking like siblings do. They're seeing them gathering around the TV. So like, that's what we did with siblings, for those who have that's what we did as a kid. That was our bonding, was playing games and watching TV and potentially reading. So you're establishing this as a close-knit family, because if you tried to keep it realistic, what are these Cobras doing?
Yeah, right.
Nothing.
It would be super boring, right? They would just kind of like slithering around.
Right.
I love that Wise Wasp makes an appearance because it's a first appearance, and like it doesn't get really talked about. It's not on the cover. It's like if you know kind of thing. Like you're gonna go back at some point. Wise Wasp is gonna get its own comic and stuff, and like, but it's gonna be like, but that's the first appearance. That makes it important. That makes this comic now more important because there's something like it comes up once or twice in the whole story. We're not talking about much about it. It's named in there and that's it. But I think that's now, having learned more about comics and like how important like first appearances and stuff that was cool for me to see, like, oh, that's actually his first one. This makes it more important for like a certain character now. That gets me excited now, like a new comic reader of like, oh, I know what this means now. I know why this is important now. For like why this comic is going to be more important now, because as a character at some point it's going to get its own thing and nobody knows which it was in. So like those little things, like I can now appreciate more.
Yeah, that's fun. And you just never know either which character is going to be the ones that take off.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
like Hulk 181 or 180, the first appearance of Wolverine. Guess what? There are a lot of characters who make their first appearance in Hulk. We know Wolverine. You know,
Mhm.
some of the other ones did not reach those heights. So yeah, it is fun to see those characters show up, and then who knows what the future holds for Wise Wasp. I'm pretty sure that won't be the last time we see Wise Wasp.
Yeah, because we need to know more about this mountain that Wise Wasp is just hanging out on. But what a great use, because you know when you want that type of that character that is like all knowing or knowledgeable, that when you think of, you know, martial arts or kung fu movies, there's always the ancient one or the wise one, like sitting in a throne of a room that's like empty, whatever. So it looks so good. It was like a perfect use. I love that. And it was such a pleasant surprise, you know? And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And it makes so much, all the sense in the world. And he's even got like the little mustache thing that you might see in kung fu movies. So it's great.
But also like Wise Wasp being such a tiny character, like that size doesn't matter. Of like, you know, wiseness is something like you learn over time. Like it's not like how big you are, like it's something like, I think it's important to have that, like a tiny character, like instilling a lot of wisdom into you. And like having confidence, like Wise Wasp being wise also instills confidence in you, you know?
Yeah, I think Wise Wasp, it's so funny how these characters work, because you could almost do something like the old EC comics where, you know, like the Crypt Keeper would introduce all the stories and tales from the crypt. You could almost see Wise Wasp having a role like that, like at the end of each VeeFriends story, you know, recapping like the lesson that we learned, or, you know, some
Cool.
kind of imparting these bits of wisdom. So yeah, they're fun characters to play with and to kind of think about in these ways of what can we do with Wise Wasp. And you can apply that to almost all the VeeFriends, you know, because so many of them are really blank slates at this point, you know.
Right.
Which is so cool that they could be anything. I think all of us have like ideas of what they could mean, but like then seeing like where you guys taking it. And I can still have my character think of like how I want to think of it and have your story. Like,
yeah, and a lot of these characters, you know, they can be consistent across a variety of stories and situations where, you know, whatever your favorite character is, if the story isn't what you had in mind, it could be the next time, you know, like these characters can move to other places and be in even different genres, you know. Like I have a character, one of my creator owned characters is Street Angel. It's this homeless skateboarder. And the longer that I would write stories about that character, the more I could understand, yes, like I can imagine that character in almost any situation. Or if you gave me a situation, if this were improv or something, it's very easy for me to picture how Street Angel reacts because I know that character at this point. And I feel like the VeeFriends are, you know, they have that quality, right? Like, you know, Helpful Hippo is going, how they would handle a situation, you know, differently than Wise Wasp or Confident Cobra. You know, like it's almost the fun part is once you start to identify these characters and what they're like, it's almost the fun part is doing that improv exercise of like, what are they doing in the supermarket? What are they doing when their car breaks down? You know, what are they doing and going on vacation to France or whatever? And then, you know, you just kind of put them in a situation and let them be them.
But also, like a lot of these characters are so human-like, even though they're not humans, that just if you look at your own life, you've been so many different versions of yourself. And I feel like I can see that for these characters too, that, I mean, even within this comic, Mentor Mongoose changes completely from a very confident one to just like, after that bite, it's going on hill, man. Like, it's a very different person. I think, but again, it's another thing where you connect with of like, yeah, sometimes you change in life. Like certain things will bring you down or will change you or make you better or worse. And sometimes you don't have control over them and you didn't know they were coming. And I think that makes these characters so, again, all these characters have human traits, even though they're not humans, like they're there to just portray something that you probably have dealt with, are gonna deal with. Like, there's gonna be a lesson that you need. Sometimes you don't want to hear it. You're not ready for it, but sometimes
That's probably the
you
lesson
have
you need
to.
most.
Yes. Like the comics, I'm like having a harder time with is oftentimes like things I'm like, oh, maybe there's something I kind of need to hear, and like I'm just not ready for it. But that's a good part about too. Like there's so many character traits and things and lessons. Like, man, we're never gonna stop learning. Like we're never gonna be done as humans. So I feel like it's good to have these comics and these lessons of this, like just growing a little bit more with each comic. Every 2 weeks you get a little bit better.
That's right.
If you read them, people.
That's right. Yes.
She gets very angry about the reading of it.
When I hear somebody like, I have all the comics, I collected all the foils. Did you open one of them? I have not read a single one of them. It's like, I'll read them to you if you let me. Like, read one. You can read them. I get it if you don't want to open a gold foil. I get it. You can read them for free. Just try one. I'm not asking you to read all of them. Just one. Tell me what you like, and I will tell you which comic you might like the most.
That's a fun. That would be a fun game. That should be what we need to do next. We have the quiz for which VeeFriends are you. We need to have the quiz for which VeeFriends comic should you read first.
Yeah, you can ask like, what kind of movies are you into, and you really can get a good judgment on that, as you know, as a movie guy. I actually when we go live on To the Moon, it'll say so and so joined. As you're just sitting there, it'll say, and they might just have swiped out and just accidentally joined the show or whatever. But one of the things I do is just to try to engage. My question is, wait, don't leave. What's your favorite movie? Because mainly just because most people at least know or have something in mind, and you can learn a lot from someone. I feel like you can get an idea of like, are we gonna have similar taste? Are we not? And are we gonna have stuff to talk about? If someone chooses a comedy versus, a classic like drama, like, The Shawshanks or whatever, it's, and it's just like a universal language almost. And I feel like you can get a good sense. And if there was a quiz and that was a question, I mean, I feel like if someone told me their favorite movie, I couldn't pick a VeeFriends comic that they might like.
Which is funny because now that we also stream comics, and when people come in, we will ask them like, "What's your favorite comic you read?" Or like, "What's your favorite cover B, and why?" Like really pushing people more into like, we want you to open these, and we want you here, and we want you to like get one, but we also want you to understand like there's so much more to it. Like we will tell them about like, oh, this comic, like there was like this one panel there, it's so good, like you won't even like trying to connect both of like you can collect them and read them, and just if you do both, it's just gonna enhance your experience, and like you're gonna enjoy it so much more. Like if you have, I recently pulled a cover out of 10 for my favorite comic. That means so much more to me than any other cover because it's my favorite and the story means so much to me. If I would have pulled that from any other comic, it wouldn't have meant the same to me. But it's like, that's my favorite comic.
That's
like
amazing.
that, like there's a different meaning to it than if somebody else pulled that of just like a random, I pulled the 10 of this and this, and like, but you don't even know the story. It was like, but it's my comic. That's my story that I needed. Like it means there's not a money value on it. There's like but it's mine.
Yeah.
Like there's emotional value that emotional value you can't put into money. It's different. And like if you never had that, I don't know what that means. But like once you read these stories and you're like, I just needed the story, or like I just really connected with that story. Like there's just something different about a comic when you have that story where it's just like, man, I needed that in my life for whatever reason that is. Like it just.
They say when the student's ready, a teacher will appear.
If that was a panel or a word, but I would have known that that's Anne's favorite.
Yeah.
I would have been like, Anne, this is your favorite word balloon.
Tom is going to draw it now.
That's right.
Okay, moving on. Favorite panel?
Draw something this year, I swear to God.
I have a favorite panel, and do you have?
Oh yeah, I think it's everyone's. It's the.
Oh,
that is TJ's favorite panel. Yes.
And again, I think for me, it's because of the empty background.
Mm.
For me, I have such a hard time with empty space. Like as a designer too, like I love empty space as a designer, but like I have such a hard time with it, not wanting to fill it. So when I see it, I'm just like, oh man, it's just like, it's focused just on what's important. There's nothing distracting around it. Anything empty space, like I'm like drawn to. It's so good.
There is open, that's called an open panel. Doesn't have a border around it. There's a cartoonist, Bill Griffith, who does a comic strip called Zippy, but he also does these wonderful graphic novels. He's just a phenomenal cartoonist. And I saw him give a talk, and he had like this handout, like a photocopy handout of like, 30 things, you should do on in your comic or whatever. And having an open panel was one of his suggestions, like having an open panel in the strip or in a comics page. And that was a long time ago that I saw him give that talk. But it always stuck with me because like when I came from like being a very insecure cartoonist, so like I was like, I don't want it to look like I'm taking shortcuts, fill in backgrounds and do all this stuff. But the truth is, you do want those open spaces and these moments of where your eye can rest and where a story can breathe and or things are happening fast. So now you want less detail so that like you're reading more quickly, during an urgent, some kind of tense moment. So yeah, he kind of gave me permission by talking about the value of those. And here it is paying off all these years later.
There you go. It was all for this moment. I try to, obviously yes, but what I love I love anytime that happens too.
Oh yes.
Nice.
That was a good one.
What's funny is I read it twice all the way through. I didn't notice it the first time.
Really?
Yeah. And it was the second I'm like, oh, there's a word there. I don't know. Like I must have just like glossed over it for some reason. And then I saw that and I was like, I just love that.
Man, I'm glad you caught it. Yeah, I'm a fan of that too. And I'm not inventing any of these techniques. That's something that's been around, but it is fun. You're trying to make the pages look interesting, and that's one more trick that you can do.
I almost feel like I thought it was just like odd shaped panels rather than the word. I don't know why I skipped it or missed it the first time, but I'm so glad I caught it. And I always I've reread every VeeFriends comic multiple times. So, but it was funny how I didn't catch it the first time and did the second. But yeah, that was my favorite. It was either that or where they're like playing poker and drinking beer, like that for wildly different reasons.
I was so pleased with myself when I figured out they would have the cards like leaning up against, like their coiled up body.
And they play, right. Oh, that's so great. I'm gonna find it now.
Talk to me about the page after he get bitten by a snake, because it goes downhill fast.
Yeah, like he's mentor mongoose. He's like the best mongoose ever. And now he's being bested by a little like garter snake type. Like it's rock bottom for this guy who was, this legendary mongoose has finally hit rock bottom. And that's what you see on the next page, right? He's beaten up, he's drinking, he's having, self-doubt. Yeah, that was a really fun, that whole sequence was enjoyable.
I think it's interesting too, because like how small things can sometimes rock your world and you don't know why. Like you see this little snake, like it's a little snake, you got bit, so what? Like move on, buddy. It's not a big deal. But then you kind of like try to have empathy and like look back on like where you had moments where like it might have been small to somebody else, but because it was something you dealt with or you maybe were insecure about, it meant so much more to you. And I think that's how I felt like about that page, where I'm like, because he was so confident that he's the best and like everybody was talking positively about him, it's like, and now he gets bitten by this tiny snake and it's like, I didn't know this could happen to me. Like he was so overconfident.
Yeah, you can get really comfortable, and also I think that we look at people that way that are successful. I think athletes are sort of poster children for this, where it's like, how could LeBron James ever have, feel like I feel whenever things aren't going right? Because you just see these people that are so successful. And sometimes, that's the toughest, because they don't have the space to be vulnerable or to have an off day, like Taylor Swift, or, when she's on doing like concerts, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people that are being paid by her. She doesn't get to not get out of bed
Right.
one morning,
Right.
Yeah.
because doesn't feel well or whatever. And yeah, it's the other thing that I think happens in those situations whenever, depending on your headspace, like sometimes you have a lot going on and you're kind of keeping it together. And then some stupid little thing is the thing it's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Mhm.
And I do think everybody can relate to that. I think,
Mhm.
if you live long enough, I think you have those experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I feel like why you brought that up, I'm going to go on a little bit of a dark tangent here. I feel like a lot of famous people where we think they're very happy and then are suicidal. You didn't see it coming. You just see like they're so confident and they're so happy and they make the money and they get the projects, and you don't see that they're dealing with so much. And I think that maybe is part of it too. Like there might have been more stress on him too, to like be the best one. Everybody expects it from you to be the best one. And when you're down, you're like, what is everybody gonna think about me right now? Like you don't really see the story behind those people. You see what's out there of them, the projects, the fame, all that kind of stuff, but you don't know what they're internally dealing with. And while I feel like initially when I read this, like it threw me off that like one little bite is gonna throw you off. Come on, buddy. Like that's not a big a deal. But like the more we talk about it, it's like for me, it's like, yeah, there's so much we don't see about people that they're dealing with that they're not talking about because they don't feel comfortable, or they just have to put this image up because that's what people see them for, or they don't allow themselves, that we don't know really what's going on with people sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Especially, I don't think it even has to be celebrities. I think in, a social media age, to some extent, even the people that we're friends with or kind of friends with, and then you follow on social media, we really don't know them, and vice versa, because you see such a small piece of people and it's kind of manufactured, it's mediated through a screen and through a million different, from the algorithm to the person themselves and what they're posting and saying about it, that it is very easy to not know what somebody else is dealing with. I think about that a lot, because like people will yell at somebody in the grocery store parking lot, right? And it's like, you just really don't know. Like that person may be coming from, his mother's funeral for all I know, or the doctor's office with bad news, or, who knows what. So I do think people don't always extend that grace around them. You just get mad because somebody pulled into the parking spot ahead of you.
Right.
It's like they might not have even seen you. It's almost certainly not some personal attack. But then again, like you also have no idea. That might be the worst day of that person's life, and now you're just piling on.
Right.
There's like there's the whole empathy part of like VeeFriends too. I remember like, and again, that's something I had to learn in VeeFriends too. I remember like we were driving on the road and like somebody cut me off and then showed me the middle finger, and I'm like, excuse me? But then in my head I was like, maybe they're having a shitty day. Like I have the luxury right now to be okay to be late, to go somewhere. Maybe they're late with their work, and if they lose their job, they're gonna lose their home. It's like you just don't know what like somebody's gone through. Like nobody's born bad or like goes into the day, I'm just gonna piss everybody off who's coming into my way today. It's like you just react. That doesn't mean it's okay what they're doing, but like you also are not in somebody's shoes a lot of the time. So it's like giving them the grace and like the compassion and the empathy of like, I really don't know you. Like even friends that we have, like we don't know, like nobody will ever know everything about you, no matter how close they are. Not your kids, not your husband, not your partner, like nobody, because you're living a whole life. You can't tell everybody about everything. It's just what it is. And I feel like just having more empathy for it, like, but see, like that's why I love these discussions. I would have never thought about this page this way until we had this conversation. And that's why, like, talk about these things, people. If you have, like, the funny thing is, on Tuesday I run community night, and we had some people talk about that towards the end of the comic, they felt kind of thrown off. And but I also know that they are watchers of the show. They're gonna listen to this and they're like, oh my god, I get it. That's why these conversations are so important, to ask these questions where you're like, we're unsure about a page, or we're unsure, like if it's with you guys or if it's just with somebody who read the comic too, to get a different perspective. I would have never gotten this perspective of this page if we wouldn't have this conversation. And that's why these conversations about things are so important. Like they just open your mind to new things.
I agree.
I love that. Let's go through the rest of it. I mean, he looks like so beaten up, man. He's like, I'm done with life. But there was a couple people too, like who didn't quite get the book where he decides. So he meets the Cobra, and the Cobra's like, I don't want to do anything with you. Like, I'm not gonna listen to you. But then I feel like as a mentor, that it's not about you or you telling them something. Like you want to teach them in a way that makes sense to them. They don't need to know that it was you teaching them. Sometimes you have to teach somebody in a way that they think it came from them. And I feel like that's what he's doing with the book he's making, and then just like leaving it so he can find it. Cobra is never going to know that that came from Mentor Mongoose. And I think probably my second favorite panel is when in the end, he's just looking in the background, just happy. Like he did it. He doesn't have to tell him. He doesn't have to tell anybody that he did that. Like as a mentor, I feel like you are just there to guide somebody in the right direction, whatever they need in the moment. And he figured out how to do it. Cobra would never listen to him. Like, so he knew he couldn't be involved himself. So he had to find a way to teach him the lessons without him being around. I feel like that's what a good mentor does. It's not about the mentor getting all the praise and like, you did so well. Thank you so much. It's like, you teaching somebody else what they needed to hear in whatever way they can receive that. And I feel like a good mentor does that.
Yeah, it was a true selfless act.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that so many mentors also, they don't always get to see the fruit of their labor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes, we included in the back the question, we had everybody from the team weigh in about a mentor.
I love that one.
And for me, it's hard to pick because I feel like I've had a lot of great mentors. But the guy that I wrote about was somebody I met when I was 16. And it's fun, like you do this kind of book, right? And I write that answer and then I think about, is that the person I want to write about? What did I say? Is that the right thing to say? And I continued to think about this guy. And I thought like what he did was talk to me like I was serious, like I was 16. Had nothing really. I look back on it and think like, there were a lot of better artists than me that I kind of knew at that age. But this guy treated me like, like serious, like what I was doing, deserved his time and attention and everything. And that meant a lot, and I feel like a lot of people who have really given me something in my life, like a piece of knowledge, something that's important, something I come back to, I don't know that they realize that they've done it necessarily, like I think this guy was just like, oh, this kid's interested in what I do. This guy was a comic book artist, and he just was very generous with his time. He talked to me a couple of times. He gave me a script. He gave me feedback on my artwork. But what he really did was he treated me serious, like he talked to me seriously. And the stuff that he told me about, I still think about to this day. And I still see him once in a while. I saw him last year at a comic book show, and we're friends on Facebook. But I don't know if he realizes, like he may not even remember that, or the details of those conversations. And meanwhile, I remember like different artists that he showed me, specific stories that he told me. And I just, it means so much to me in my life. But I have no idea how it registers with him. I mean, how many fans has he met in his life,
right?
Talked to and looked at kids' portfolios and things like that. And maybe, I don't know how many of them went on to do what I did either, so it's this weird thing. You just kind of do the best you can. And maybe, those words do mean something, like maybe it intersects at the right moment when somebody's passing through that you have that conversation with. And that's whenever they're ready to hear that, or where they're at in their life, they actually read meaning into what you're telling them. And, it's very impactful. And this guy certainly had an impact on my life. Here we are talking about it and, 35 years later almost. Right. And I still remember that stuff better than I remember what I had for breakfast today.
it's I mean, you just love the stories like that.
And sometimes you don't even realize that it had an impact on you until you sit down. Like when I love that last page where everybody talks about their mentors and stuff, because it makes you think of who's my mentor or who are my mentors in my life. And you don't really think about it. And like, if I look back on like it was a lot of times teachers who were like mentors of mine. It was very short moments. It wasn't even over a long period of time. It was like something they said that really sat with me. And I never really like talked to them and said like, that really means something to me. You know, like I remember like one of my photography teachers in college, I didn't really live up to what I was capable of. And he was just very honest about like, I just know you can do more. He wasn't mean about it, anything, but like that sat so deep in me that he's like, that he believed in me and I just didn't deliver because I didn't put enough work in, that I was like, never again. That was one interaction. One thing he said was enough for me. Like, if somebody else can believe in me like that, like, why am I putting in this half-ass thing? Like that's not okay. And like, he didn't yell at me or anything. It was like one thing, like, I believe in you and I know you can do more. Like, you're really good at this and you're just not putting in the work and that you could be better. I was like, that almost sits more with you than somebody yelling at you. And like, I feel like I look back at a lot of my mentors of like, just somebody at some point seeing more in you. And then you starting believing that too. Like, and it wasn't like long-time mentors who would like give me all the knowledge. It was like oftentimes for me, like it was a moment of like, if you barely know me and you see that in me, like, why am I not pushing further in that? So I love this page of it. It was also interesting for me how different it is. Like the different people you guys are talking about, like how much people are like, how short or long something is, also shows you a little bit of like who the person itself is, you know, like how much you like. And I feel like for you, part of it too, like yours was very long. And I think part of it is it was somebody you probably never told about how important that person was to you. And I feel like the less you told somebody that it was important to you, the more you want to talk about it. But it's like Andy was his mom. Very short, very to the point. It's also Andy. He doesn't talk much. But like, you know, like it's very, if it's somebody, I feel like you've told these things before or you see all the time, you don't talk about as much, versus if it's somebody like, I'm just realizing how much you meant to me or how much of a mentor you were to me, like the more you feel like, I really need to get this out to you. And I feel like that's how I kind of see when I look at the different responses. It shows you a lot of like how important that mentor actually was for somebody.
Yeah, I it's interesting doing the back matter of the books. Mm-hmm. So I have 2 books right now in progress that I need to do those like back 2 pages of. And I like the mentor, the way that page turned out too, you know, so it is something I think about, like where it's like, well, I want one page to sort of look at the qualities, you know, whatever the attributes were that the story dealt with, or, you know, the characters in it personified, like that's something I'd like to put one of those end pages, you know, dedicated to that. But some of them lend themselves to that easier than others, you know, like who's a mentor is sort of a question that's a good prompt, you know, because everybody has somebody. And, you know, to your point, like even just the answers that we got, you see kind of a broad spectrum. So trying to figure that stuff out, you know, it's, you know, it's part of the interesting thing of making these books, because they're not just the stories, you know, like we've got 24 pages in these comics to fill, you know, plus covers, and you have to just kind of like, you know, I was making comics on my own before I started at VeeFriends. So you have to figure out what goes on that page. And it's part of what makes what I like about comic books as a format. You know, they're these little 24 page, you know, relatively small packages, but you can put a lot in there. And, you know, if something in that back actually changes maybe the way you think of the story, you can really create like an experience. And, you know, there was an artist that visited my school when I was coming up, and he would do like big installation and like public arts, and all the sculpture majors, that's what they wanted to do. Like the bigger, the better. And he gave this talk about how monumentality has nothing to do with size. And I kind of feel that way about like comic books. Like I just think of it as this is a format, and we have everything we need there, like to tell virtually any story we want to tell. And I do think of those extra pages as part of that, you know, like make the best use of those you can, whether it's spotlighting an artist or, you know, whatever the case may be, because even if you just look at the back matter of our comics, there's a pretty wide range of topics and design and, you know, things that we have put in the back of the books. And why not? You know, it's valuable real estate. So,
I'm pretty sure that most people who like read through it will stop at that page and think about what's my actual mentor. And I love that Chris actually in it says, I couldn't think of a mentor, and that's okay too. Not everybody has that. Like, I think in the beginning when I first thought about like, do I have a mentor? Because I thought of mentor as like this long-term thing who like kind of signed up with like to who mentors you, whereas like an agreed almost like relationship, versus sometimes it just happens naturally. And I think reading through them and seeing like what people thought of what mentors can mean to you, of like open it up to me of like, okay, what were people who like influenced my life? That's really what a mentor is. It's like somebody who influenced you at some point to take a different path, to dive deeper into something, to believe in yourself, whatever it is. And like then a lot of people came up. I was like, initially it was like Chris, I was like, I don't think I have mentors. Like I've never had like somebody, when I think of mentors, like this person who knows you and there's a back and forth and you teach each other, almost like a therapy kind of thing, you know? But I was like, I never had that, but I had moments with people in my life who believed in me or pushed me or like did something that changed the trajectory of my life. And I feel like that are mentors too. They don't have to be long in your life. I don't think any of them really know there were mentors to me. I now realize there were. Like it took me a long time. They definitely don't know they were mentors to me.
I think that's a good point, because you don't know, you know, sometimes it'll be 10 years later and something will jog your memory, some moment, you know, crossroads you face or a decision you make, and it'll come back to you. And it's like, whoa, that guy did know what he was talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like with your parents a little bit. Yes. I also really love the behind the scenes page. I love that you're drawing on lined paper. Because it's not perfect. It's just like you just want to draw, you want to sketch, and that can be on any paper. It doesn't have to be the perfect sketchbook or whatever. Like whatever your paper is around, you sketch on that. And I think it's another thing of like where for like somebody who is just getting into art or getting back into it feels inspired to like, that's what I think of like in school. We always like scribble in our notebooks and stuff like that. And that's what I kind of think of like, again, you have an artist in you. You don't need that white page in front of you. It can just be, could be a freaking little piece of paper you find somewhere where you scribble on while you're on a phone call. You know, like
100%.
Let it out.
Yes.
I love that last page. I love when you guys show the plot.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Do you still have these?
Yeah, I still have them.
Will you stash them somewhere like long term, or is it just?
So they're in this book.
Okay,
and cool. I like this size. I actually have like the last 10 years of these all piled up in a shelf here to my right. Perfect. And I date them. So they're kind of like a log. It's pretty interesting. You know, like I do meeting notes in these. I do morning reflections. It's just a catch-all because they fit in a backpack very easily. So, and I go through a couple of them a year. You know, they're 48 pages or so, and they vary. Like they're not quite the same. I found a notebook this size and I loved it. And I went back to the store to buy more. And the guy's like, oh, they went out of business. And he had like one left or whatever. And I bought it. And then I just bought a bunch of notebooks that were approximately this size because I'd fallen in love with this size. But they're all different makes and models. And I'm not particular. Like Ann said, you know, it's lined paper. It's not precious. This is just literally my workbook, you know, record keeping kind of thing. And it'll be full of ugly sketches, quick sketches, things I'll do in pen so that it's not like I'm erasing and trying to do a perfect drawing. I don't really have sketchbooks. Like some artists have like beautiful, like their sketchbooks are works of art. And I don't. You know, I work out sketches and stuff in here. Like I'll work out rough ideas and layouts and covers and things, but I don't have like dedicated sketchbooks of like, watch me spend hours and, you know, make this thing perfect or something. And I envy, you know, like I love these sketchbooks of these artists that have beautiful sketchbooks, but it's not something that ever worked for me. I would try it, at different times, but I didn't really work in them. And I have some of those too. Like going through school, we had to keep sketchbooks and things like that. But for my kind of as an adult, I just need something where I can write stuff down. And what I would find is if I had a sketchbook, then I also needed a notebook, for whatever meetings or to-do lists and stuff. And I just, practically speaking, want them in one place. So this is what I arrived on about 10 or 15 years ago, and it's been working pretty well.
Yeah, no, I love that you had the wherewithal to be like, I'm going to date this and keep it and store it. And it's like a time capsule that you can go see where you were at a certain point. And that's what I was curious about. And I'm glad that because I keep nothing and I'm terrible with paper. If you give me something, I will lose it from here to the car, and then be like, where did I put it? So I envy and love when people, share that, because it's like, God, I need to do that.
I am happy that I do it, because I always say, like, I wish I kept better records of virtually everything in my life, because my memory is not very good. And I wish I would have recorded like every comic book show I attended, because at this point I've done hundreds of them, but I can't, I did not record that. I don't have records of like, oh, I met this artist at this show, or I did this amount of business at this show, or, whatever. But I do at least have these journals, and they kind of approximate that stuff. And they're not written like Dear Diary, but they are dated and things like that. So you can kind of like piece together like, oh, this is me working on whatever project, Hulk or something. And you can kind of at least track it somewhat. And I don't know that I'll ever go through them. I don't know that I'm, going to write memoirs someday and I'll need to reference these, but occasionally I will have to look something up, and I can usually find it, pretty easily because of those dates between like computer files that are dated. Then I can kind of go back into these notebooks and sketchbooks and track things down.
But I always think of like, we all hope VeeFriends is growing into this thing we all hoping to grow into. Like there's like 50 years down the road, like you have these beginning comics, drawings, like that's how it started.
Yeah, there'll be, I'll have it. So far, I've got a couple of these sketchbooks of VeeFriends information. So yeah, the longer I stay there, the more my pile of notebooks is, documenting VeeFriends work.
I was listening to, there's a community member who does a podcast. He's been doing it for a while. His name's Rob Messer. He does the VFam sessions, and he recently had Ben Kine or Ben Harbuck on it, another amazing community member, artist, tattoo artist, all that. And I was listening to, he was on it recently, and he was talking, and you came up, like your name, he was talking, referencing of how early we are still in VeeFriends, and equated it to, when Stan Lee was writing for Marvel in the 60s, and he was like, Jim Rugg's going to be the Stan Lee of VeeFriends. And I'm like, all right. And he was like, him, DJ, like these are the Kirby, Stan Lee names when it comes to VeeFriends 50 years from now. And he might be onto something.
Hey, it's a nice thing to hear. I hope he's right, because that will mean we were very successful and made stories that, span generations and inspired all kinds of other storytellers. So
it'd be something.
It would be.
But you also talked about like how lucky we are, like the access we have. Like we literally messaged you and like, sure, I'm coming on. Like we had not a single like team member say no to us. Like it's always like, yeah, I'll love to come on. Let's talk. And I feel like looking down 20, 50 years down the line, when this is, again, like we all are here because we believe in it. We believe that this can really be something because of the characters and the traits and the stories, like really helping people become better versions of themselves. And like if this grows into the next Disney or whatever, like, I think it's going to go into its own thing. It's not going to be like a Disney. It's going to go into its own thing. It's like none of us are going to have the same access to you guys, because you're going to be so busy doing so much. Like, you guys are already busy. All the like the amount of comics you put out, and like you guys are on events, and like you work on other projects and stuff. Like we're so grateful. I think Tom and I are going to look back and was like, man, we could just like message Jim and just like, sure, come on. You know,
Yeah.
like it's gonna be insane for people like 50 years down the road. Like, you did what?
Yeah. In 10 years, when Jim doesn't even read our messages. And,
That's right.
Our
And my
kids are gonna
assistant
be
is
like,
reading them.
right.
yeah,
We get
our
our
kids are gonna be like,
denial
"You
letter.
talk to who?"
Yeah.
It's like, yep.
It's awesome that you have that perspective now, you know, because that's the other thing. Like so often, I think people miss the present and what's going on. You know, you always appreciate things when they're gone or when they're over.
Right.
And who knows, you know, like who knows where the three of us are in 5 years or 10 years and where VeeFriends is at. But if you can appreciate right now the experience, like that's what we have,
Right.
you know, and we'll continue to live our lives and they'll probably be go in different directions than whatever we have planned and expect and hope for. And it might be better or worse, but you know, like you just got to kind of take in these moments and just enjoy them, you know, for what they are. And I hope you're right. I hope VeeFriends becomes huge. I hope we're all super successful with it, but it's pretty good right now, you know, and we'll keep working at it and see where it goes, you know, and it's cool that the community is as close to it as they are. Whether that's you guys or other community members, you know, we had a meetup at Comics Pro in LA in late January, and we had the meetup in the same hotel where the Comics Pro was held. And, you know, like the retailers are hanging out at the bar or whatever, and we talked to some of them, and then it's like meetup starting, you know, like people are starting to show up. And you could see the retailers would come up to us afterwards and be like, what is going on? What is this? And yes, it's like, it's cool to have that access, but it's also cool for us. The first show I ever did, I gave like I was at a table and her table was next to me, and I gave the tables next to me one of my comics, you know, because it's like, I'm new.
Sure.
Good to meet you. And the one guy looked at it and gave it back to me, didn't want it. I literally couldn't give my comics away. I will always remember that. So if people are interested in what I'm doing, you know, that's awesome for me. It's not just, oh, you have access to Jim and DJ and Andy. It's like, we also have people that care. And that's really exciting because like, I do spend a bunch of time at my drawing table with my back to the world, and it's not great when nobody wants to read that or doesn't care, you know? So like, I will never take for granted that there are a bunch of people that are interested in what I'm writing or what I'm drawing or something, you know, it works both ways. I think part of that energy that you guys are feeling, we are also experiencing it. And like I said, you know, like who knows what the future is, but right now it's pretty great.
Yeah. It's like knowing you're in the good old days when you're in it.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait too long and be like, I wish I knew back then. I would have enjoyed it more.
It's always that balance too. Like on the one hand, we all want VeeFriends to grow because we know how much value it brought to us. We want to bring it to others too. We want others to enjoy this too. But we also know that it's going to mean that one day it's not going to be this close-knit group. I mean, we already like, Tom has done a lot longer than me, but like, even for me, it's like, I've seen such a change within VeeFriends just in the last like 2+ years that I've been in it, of like going from this really, really close, you know, basically everyone in the community to like half the people have no clue who they are anymore. And that's okay because we're growing. That's a good thing. But also it means change. And like it always comes with like, you don't know what that change is going to look like, you know, because you don't have control over it, who's coming in, how they're taking it on. So like you said, like you just have to enjoy the time that we do have right now. Like I still remember the first time we met you was at Comic-Con. We got one of the stickers from your table. We didn't know you. We didn't know that you would be part of VeeFriends at the time. And like now it's the second time you've done the podcast and had great conversations. Like you never know how fast something can all of a sudden change from one night to the next. Like, and that's an exciting thing too, I think, within VeeFriends, that you don't know what they're going to do next. Like, I don't know what Gary's going to do next week. He's going to have some idea of like, I think this is going to be great. And he's just going for it, which is great because I think he knows what he's doing. Like he has so much of a grasp on like how the world works and like what people are into that he will just like, we're just doing it. Like, you know, I think it's important to just sometimes try things. Some things are going to work out and some things don't. And that's okay too. But like, even in the short time I've been in, I've seen so much growth and so much change. And like, I think the trajectory is just going to keep going that way, because every time you have people come in and like really take an interest, you see them fall in love with it, with the idea around VeeFriends, with the community part. I think for me, like I think for both of us, is always like the community is the biggest driver why people stay. They might come in because of a collectible or like Gary's content, but they stay because of like what good of a place it is. Like people just like accepting and like are positive, encouraging you. Like there's so many people who tried new things they've never tried before. Like they were so afraid to do. If it's writing a book, if it's doing your own art, like, and just seeing that they feel safe enough to do that in this space, and encouraged and like inspired and stuff. Like I know Alex, who was a listener, is publishing his first book. And he did the art for the book, which was inspired by seeing you guys draw and getting back into drawing, and like seeing other people putting out a book within this community. And it's like, if they can, I can too, you know, just like, and seeing that growth in people and being part of it and just seeing them like step by step going for it. It's just, I think it's so cool. And that wouldn't have happened without VeeFriends.
The community is an amazing, amazing thing. And it surprises me how these communities develop, because I don't know that you can plan them.
No.
You know, like you sort of build this thing, you almost like create the space, and then what you make, I guess, is what attracts people to that space. But I agree with you so much, you know, and I think that that's one of the realities of Gary is, you know, like I see it with his employees, you know, and like with this team that he's built. And it makes sense to me that the community would resemble that, you know. Like I always say, everybody's so excited for anybody's success. That's amazing. You know, like so much of the world is like, I actually want you to fail because that'll make me feel better, or maybe then I'm ahead of you or whatever. And it's not that way at VeeFriends. And from your description, you know, it doesn't sound like it's that way in the community of VeeFriends and VeeFriends fans either. And again, you know, I don't know if I'm getting softer as I get older, if the world's getting harder, but I think like anywhere you can find that kind of positivity is a great thing to have.
I agree. But speaking of community, we actually started a little group chat of like avid listeners, like to ask questions. So we have some questions from you from some of our listeners.
And this will be the last segment, we promise, because speaking of time, we've been super generous with it, and I just want to make sure we...
Yeah, I think I'm going to be late for work tomorrow. I might slip in a little bit.
After 5 hours of meetings today, and now another 2.5 hours, you know what I mean? So, all right, rapid fire.
Manuel said, we often hear about DJs and Gary's vision for the comics, but what is yours?
Great question. You see mine in the comics that I make. So if you look at something like Farm Fights and you look at Cobra, I think those comics look different, read different, are very different. My vision for comics, not just VeeFriends, but comics, is just, I want every kind of comic to exist, every style, every story. And that is something that I want to bring to VeeFriends. You know, I want to hire artists that maybe haven't done a regular comic, or, you know, like we had Attack Peter do the cover B for Minakawa. He's an illustrator that I have loved for a long time. And it's like, let's bring in an illustrator, you know, let's bring in an artist that isn't necessarily a comic book artist. Let's bring in somebody that does alternative comics and have them, you know, draw a story or write a story. So that would be my vision, is I believe comics can be really all over, everything you can imagine. And my vision would be, let's actually do that with VeeFriends. So, you know, the comics that I make, I am trying to do different stuff each time. The artists that I'm looking to work with, like I want to see art styles that I haven't seen in VeeFriends. I want to see genres that we haven't seen yet in VeeFriends. One of my favorite genres in comics, we haven't done yet in VeeFriends. And I don't want to give anything away, but people I think will love it because I love it. And I am kind of jonesing to do a particular story. So, you know, just continuing to push what comics can be is my vision for VeeFriends.
Love that.
A lot of people really want to connect in person with some of the artists. So Tim, aka Pulse Tim, is asking, what are some events you might be on this year so they can meet you?
So the next event that I'll be at is Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. That is June 12th to the 14th. It's a pretty big comic show. It's the full size like convention center there, and it's all comic centric. I will have all of my VeeFriends comics plus a lot of other stuff that I've done there. It's a great comic show, and I've been plugging it on Making Comics Now. Like any VeeFriends fans that are anywhere near Charlotte, I would encourage them to like come and check it out because it's comics paradise. I am doing a show in Jacksonville. It is IC3. It's like independent comic creator. I never can get these initials right, but it's IC3 in Jacksonville. That is in July. Then San Diego Comic-Con is in July, and I'm planning to be there for at least a couple of days. I know that there are some VeeFriends activities going on in San Diego, so it won't just be me. So, if you're looking to meet some of the VeeFriends people, San Diego, there'll be some of us there. Not sure exactly who and how many. New York Comic-Con, I think probably the whole team will be there. I'm doing an IC3. That's another one of those independent shows in Providence, Rhode Island. I think it's the last weekend in September. And that might be everything that I currently have scheduled. Oh, the other show where we'll have a big presence is at National, the card convention. And that's in I think last weekend in July.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm going to be there or not. I'll probably make an appearance there too. So yeah, like follow, if you're following VeeFriends, we certainly will promote these, like the big shows that we do. And they are events. Part of my 5-hour meeting was a 3-hour meeting with Gary and the team today, talking about some of these events, including New York Comic-Con and planning things for them. So, it's not just a chance to meet us, but it's a chance, you guys came to New York Comic-Con last year. We had stickers and postcards, mini comics, new releases, things like that. So we always do something for these shows. So if you see that we're going to be at one, come on out.
We're excited for New York Comic-Con. It's like one of my favorite events, I think, of the year. It's just so much fun. New York itself and it's like the Comic-Con itself is just probably my favorite. So whenever I will always make happen, no matter what.
Yeah, that is a fun show. It helps that it's in New York because it's fun even after hours. And
yes,
yeah, it is. Manuel asked, what are your thoughts on the current comics hype? As an artist, how do you feel about that there's hundreds of comics being ripped?
I mean, I love it. I've been in comics long enough to have like a couple of dips. Whenever I broke into comics, we used to joke about there was a $5 bill and it would just go from table to table. And basically we were all just trading our comics with each other.
Right.
So to see where comics are today, I'm thrilled with it. I have been with VeeFriends since September, so not that long. And I've watched them just grow and get more and more attention, which is super important in what we've been trying to do. So it's good to see that happening. The comics at large are also experiencing that. At Comics Pro, I talked to several retailers who had their best year of retail last year. And some of these places have been open 20 years or more. So that's really saying something. And, a rising tide raises all ships. I'm not sure exactly that expression, but it's good for VeeFriends. It's good for comics. And as a fan and as a person that's working in comics, I love it. It's fantastic. I did a lit and music festival in Tallahassee, Florida, about a month ago. And it was the first time that they had graphic novelists. And it's a lit festival that's been going on there for a long time. Like it's a pretty big deal there. And our panel, we had one panel for graphic novels and it was packed. And,
awesome.
I just love it. I love it. The first show that I did, I said I gave somebody a comic and they gave it back to me, was SPX, which is kind of like a alternative comics venue, but it's something that a lot of graphic novels came out of. Someone like Jeff Lemire's Essex County would have been at home at a place like that. And I had gone to comic conventions as a fan, but they were more of like cosplay and superheroes, mostly exclusively. So I'm set up at this show, and this old gray-haired lady comes by my table, and it's like, I've never seen someone like this at a comic convention. And as I talked to her, she was a librarian, and she was there, basically looking at graphic novels for her library. And I was so excited by that, because like that wasn't a thing in my school, or in my public library. There was Garfield and there were Prince Valiant reprints, and that was about all the comics I could find whenever I was in school. And so to like see this sea change in comics, it's not just comic book shops, it's literally schools and libraries. It's been a dream come true for me. So yeah, I'm thrilled with the hype around comics. Rip them all, and pass on those base copies to people to read and enjoy them, enjoy the comics.
One more question from one of the listeners. Why the piano? Because it's so hard for a Cobra to play piano. Why the piano?
That's probably.
I don't know where the piano came from. I'll be honest. The writing process and working at VeeFriends, so much is going on at all times. So like, I'm plotting stories, and then I'm doing something else, and then I'm coming back and I'm like expanding those plots and revising. And I don't remember like what planted the idea of like a piano, but it showed up pretty early in the process. I liked it throughout the process. So, it made it through the final cut. And I kind of wish I had a better answer for that, but it's one of those, I was writing at the right time on a Tuesday morning with not enough sleep, and a piano popped into my head. It was kind of a fun moment.
Last questions for me. What would you say to someone in the VeeFriends community who still hasn't given the comics a chance?
Jeez. Don't wait too long. Print runs are going up, back issues are disappearing. Like, now is your chance. It's going to be a lot more expensive to jump on in the future. I would say, like, why not? Why haven't they tried it? There are comics for everybody, and we are trying to make VeeFriends have comics for everybody. So give them a chance. It's words and pictures.
I know. And if you can't read, Tom will read it to you.
There you go.
I will read it for you. I'll just record myself and we'll post it.
Maybe we should do that. Just record ourselves reading them and just like.
Totally.
You'll hear me stumble over words reading out
all
loud all the time. So, yeah.
That's fun, Jim.
I looked at the piano like it's because it was hard and unconventional, and that's why. And then it was like, but I also feel like as you were kind of explaining, saying, I don't know, I'm like, it's such a thing that I feel like Gary and VeeFriends do is like, they're just like, aim big and then say it out loud, and then we'll figure it out on the way. When they're just like, why would you order this? We don't have hands or whatever. And he's like, I'm sure we'll figure it out. I feel like that's the whole business model. Sometimes it's like, we're getting into precious metal coins. What? And now here we are with second and third releases coming out. And it's like, yeah, we'll figure it out. We said it. Now we have to do it type thing.
The thing is, I didn't even think about that they couldn't play the piano. I was like, yeah, I was like, when did the comic it said like, you don't have hands? And I was like, oh yeah, right. Like, I didn't even think about it. It's like, it's a piano, you have to just play. It's like, oh yeah.
It's like working together,
It's probably like one of those subconscious things where I was frustrated of like, how do I make these snakes emote? They don't have any limbs. They don't, but yeah, it's as a creator, it's fun whenever that kind of stuff does come up where it's like, I'm not sure, it was some kind of lateral jump in my head and I liked it. And,
and that's the best. Like that to me is the best way for something to make it in, is that it's just like that. How do you make a snake play the piano? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Like take the impossible and make it happen somehow.
And it works so well at the end too, because when they play, everybody gets their part to make it play. And I feel like that gives you, again, Confident Cobra is trying to instill confidence in them. And when you're part of a team that is not, if you're not there, a team doesn't work. That gives you confidence. Like it was an underlying of how you build confidence. If you're part of a team, you're important. It builds you up. I feel like it was.
He's trying to teach them to work together and do all this stuff, and it's like it's deeper than we think, Jim. I think you're hitting something there. So it was perfect.
It was a great story.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much
for being a part of the team, writing these comics, sharing your art, and obviously you're wildly generous in your time tonight.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate what you guys do, and thank you for having me and letting me talk about what I do. So it's a win-win-win.
And I think it's going to help people too, just like I said, like have a conversation about it before, and like some people like being confused about certain pages or how they fit in, you know, like really understanding what you guys meant with certain parts of it. They're going to listen to this now and they're like, oh, this makes so much sense now. That's why I love also like listening to Making Comics Now. If you haven't, guys, listen to Making Comics Now, usually on Thursdays. Because you guys talk about how something was created. You guys talk to the different cover artists and stuff. Like you get a different perspective. Like the thing is too, we can have a conversation about this comic and then you have one with an artist or with DJ, and it's two completely different conversations. It's never been the same, which is so fun because that's again is the have conversations with people. You can have a conversation about the same topic with 10 different people and it's 10 different conversations. Just talk with people about things you are passionate about.
You know, if that's all that the VeeFriends Comics did was encourage people to have conversations, I feel like that would be a huge success.
Yep. Especially in today's age.
I agree.
Have more conversations. Read more comics and have more conversations.
I was gonna say, how are we signing off on this? We gotta have Jim say it.
Yeah. You know how we end our comic show, right?
No, I don't.
So one of us will say, read more comics, and the other one will say,
We can't do it, and
how will say it?
Don't make me do
say,
it.
Read more fucking comics.
Ah,
Actually, DJ started that, by the way.
He did.
So we just took it on.
well, I am always happy to say, read more comics.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you again, Jim. This has been an absolute blast. I could keep talking to you forever, but we'll respect your time. Yeah.
Let me make another 3 or 4 comics and then I'll come back.
Perfect. You heard it here.
And by then, Tom has started on his 6 tracks.
No, that is not part of the deal. But
Yes, it is. It is now. You all heard it. I'm not cutting this out. It's happening.
thank you all from us here at Is It Canon.
Don't forget to subscribe, follow, read more comics, talk about them, share them on socials, not just the hits, but also the stories. They matter.